Yeah, and I got to work with Alice Cooper. We were talking about Alice Cooper. I worked on his Welcome to My Nightmare tour, and he was just crazy. But like you said, you know, with a lot of these guys, it was just it was their persona, and off stage they're just like the quietest people. You know?
Well, everybody knows that followed Alice Cooper, of course, with those crazy shows. He's always in makeup. He's going nuts. But I've seen him with no makeup on. He sounds so philosophical. You're like, wait a minute, it's the same guy? It's like a doctor when he's talking to you. But when he puts in that mask, he's another person. It's like Showtime. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. I can remember being at Polygram Records and being introduced at a meet and greet to Marilyn Manson, and he's the quietest guy. He was just sitting in a corner, but his persona is just so crazy. And you go and he had the lightest handshake. Hi, how are you? You know, but just you know when someone shakes your hand, you want like a real.
It's like air. Handshake. It's like you're doing. It's like air. It's like the air shake. Yeah. There's nothing there. It's like, hi. I've been down that road with some of the acts too. You're like, that's an interesting moment. This is not really interesting. So that's your story behind the scenes. So of course now, well, that's why I wanted you to tell people, you know, that you've been in the music industry most of your life in different capacities doing this job. So, you know, here's the thing now. You started with the compilations in the 90s, or was this the 80s that the disco compilation?
Not 90s, probably 90, 97, 98.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, because you're a DJ. You know, we know hip hop was already making its way across the oceans, and I know you playing that because you mentioned you into the hip hop side.
Yeah.
Was house music, because house music really started to take off here mid-80s in America. Were you seeing any of that stuff coming up or realizing what it was into Australia?
Yeah, it was, because, you know, by then, by the 80s, you sort of had, you know, Central Station Records, which you would have shopped at many times. And Joe from Central Station Records is a very, very dear and old friend of mine. So they had the network in place, and I was actually the first DJ to ever buy a 12-inch single from Joe from Central Station when he opened his very first shop in a little arcade in Melbourne. And he sort of grew into, you know, as you know, one of the biggest labels and importers of house and dance and funk and hip hop, you know, in Australasia. And yeah, so by the 80s, there was a really strong network for importing the music. So, but again, it was still pretty underground. It was still pretty underground, you know, people running clubs. And to be honest, back then it was much bigger in the gay clubs than what it was in the straight clubs, you know.
It always goes to show you that the gay clubs have better choice of music. I've always said that. Always. You know, that's where it usually begins, and it always breaks there. And then eventually regular club scene jumps on it, but it's usually for years being played in the gay club scene before it ever gets its time, its due right in commercial, you know, the other side of the club land. So you're going into the 90s now. You're making compilations. You're touring.
Yeah.
When does the production work begin for you?
The production work for me began, I suppose, because I'd always focused on, I was pretty much a full-time DJing, and full-time DJing for me, I was playing, you know, 6-7 nights a week consistently for years. And many years I played like 500-600 gigs a year. Some years as high as 700 gigs a year, 2 or 3 gigs a night. So production really took a bit of a back seat. And then in the early 2000s, you started to have these younger kids coming through that were doing their own remixes of tracks. And then, everybody had access to the funky mixes and the ulti mixes and the wicked mixes and the standard remixers, but these guys started putting their own twist on tracks. And then I started to think to myself, well, if I'm going to have any longevity in what I'm doing, I've really got to get with the program. I've got to start making my own remixes of stuff. I've got to have my own twist, my own personal twist on what I'm doing. So that really sort of shook me into the air. And I just sort of started making remixes and edits for my own personal sets. And from there, people started asking me for stuff and saying, we really like what you're doing. And then I just sort of decided to start to sort of get it out to people by the mid sort of 2000s. And then by I think maybe 2008, 2009, I started to get some stuff out to, when Facebook was in its infancy, it sort of opened up that network to get your music to people overseas, and then just started connecting with a lot of old school funk and disco DJs that played a lot of the weekenders in the UK, the soul weekenders. And it just progressed from there, and just built on it. And pretty much it, the skills that I have are all sort of self-taught. I didn't go to university. I didn't study any engineering courses. I suppose it's just intuition and putting a twist on a track and adding your own flavour to it.
I will say I remember, let's see, in the mid-90s when I first came, house was being played a lot.
Mm.
But trance was already really big in Australia.
Yeah.
Because I was blessed to play at Chevron in Melbourne, and that was like your paradise garage, I was told, in so many ways. So, and I got to experience what it was like to play at Chevron, for example. I'm probably one of the first that came with the New York guys that came over to play in Australia and was able to experience the Australian crowds, because, I mean, I was going to Europe and UK for so long already, but I never went that far because it always felt you guys had your own thing going on, aside from what we were doing. But I'm going to guess because you're gigging 7 nights a week, 2 to 3 gigs a night. So you're playing 2 hours per set each spot, right? And then moving around. Was there ever a thought of you to play a resident DJ at one spot and not have to do all these guest spots?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of midweek residencies where Guy Jeff Holden and I we ran a night at Monsoons at the Hyatt Hotel, which ran from 92 to 2007, and I was a residency there pretty much, like every week, where I was doing like when you're a residency just in one club, you're playing 6, 7, 8 hour sets. I mean, they're unheard of these days. You get promoters these days ring you up and ask you to do a 45-minute versus set.
So when you
what? 45 minutes versus set with another DJ.
What is supposed to be 45 minutes? How many records you playing? 4? 5? If you're lucky.
Crazy. Yeah, so I did have residencies, and throughout pretty much from I had 10 years of solid touring where pretty much every second weekend I'd be interstate working, and you get sick of it. You get sick of it, as you know, just living out of suitcases. And you know, when you go into a place for the first time, it's great, but when you're sort of playing in the city for 10, 15, 20 times, it's and just the travelling, and that just sort of took its toll. And then I sort of came back and was more, you know, having residencies. These were residencies that I was playing, like having 2 or 3 residencies a night. So, yeah, but it was just sort of building up, having those solid weekly sets to, you know, like, and with a family to support too, like with children to support. It's, you know, as you know, being a full-time DJ, it's tough. It's tough going. And I don't know many now, you know, besides guys that, you know, like at the top of the tree that can actually afford to DJ full-time now, you know. And post-COVID, you know, the rates have gone way down again as well, you know. And then, as you know, as technology improves and gets better, you get a lot of guys that'll play for peanuts, you know. Some guys are playing promoters to DJ. They're giving them money instead of getting paid.
Okay, everyone, listen carefully. Sell 25 tickets and you can DJ at my club all night for 2 hours. And people are taking those gigs because they never DJ'd before, or they're trying to get in. They'll do whatever they have to get those gigs. You know, it's just, it is what it is. I totally understand. I understand it from the beginner, and I also understand it from the veteran side. So it's a tough one. So, you know, you have gold records and all that stuff, your remixes, your productions, because we know we've seen you on TrackSource and, you know, Spotify, you have your records up there and things like that. That was definitely the progression when the club started to slow down. It had to be to stay in this game. So you have to be in the record business to keep going, to supplement the part that you can't DJ anymore as much, or you don't want to. It's just too much after a while, like you said. But you mentioned something about traveling. Did you leave yet to go international? Did you go over to Europe and UK to play? Or were you only...
I went over to the UK to sort of connect with my network of friends, but I didn't actually play. You know, like I played in Bali and Thailand a few times, which were a bit closer. So I haven't actually, you know, played in the UK. I've been over to the UK a couple of times to connect with a lot of the old school guys and go to a few of the soul weekenders, which has just been great because they just have that real appreciation for the music over there and that love that's just, you know, and to connect with people, as you know, it's all about the connections that you make, and to connect with people that have been in the business as long as what you and I have. It's a real blessing, you know, and the friendship is that instant connection is just there, and to connect with people that adore the music is just you know, it's next level. It's next level. Yeah. Well, so getting back to the remixing. So then, you know, I started, you know, making my own remixes for my sets, pumping them out to a few DJs. And then a couple of guys said to me, oh, you know, your mixes are pretty good. Have you thought about getting them out to one of the remix services? So then, I don't know if you know, do you know DMS, Direct Music Service, in the US? So Direct Music Service, which are LA based.
Is that Carrie Vance?
Yeah.
Carrie Vance, right?
edits and remixes to those guys, and they started releasing them on their platform. So it was just all about getting my name out there. And then, so then I was getting stuff out through Hyped It, the remixes and edits. And then I approached DMC in the UK. And DMC, again, that's opened so many doors for me, because DMC, as you know, like with the World DJ Championships, they built their foundation from the 80s, and they had guys like, Ben LeBrand and Michael Gray started with DMC as well. And, I've had 3 albums of remixes and edits released by DMC, and since I sort of formed a connection with them a couple of years ago, I've had 2 or 3 remixes of edits on every issue that they've brought out. So that's been wonderful as well. And then again, that sort of led to opportunities with labels approaching me, and getting stuff out there, working with Kenny Summit with Good For You Records, put out a mix CD with a lot of his stuff through Honey, through Kenny Summit, and became very good friends with Scott Wozniak.
Yeah, Scott's a talented brother, real talent.
Yeah. So Scott opened doors for me as well, and Kenny Summit actually, learned a lot, honing his production skills working with Scott also. And then was approached by labels, had releases on Midnight Riot Records, and now did a remix of Dennis Ferris Church Lady for King Street.
Oh,
quite well. And now I'm working with Irma Records in Italy, so made some wonderful connections. Yeah, it's been great. Had a couple of number ones on Traxsource. Now I'm working with Jamie Lewis with Purple Music, signed 4 or 5 tracks to Purple. So yeah, it's great. I feel blessed to still be in the business, and as you know, it's about reinventing yourself to have that longevity and your career changing. And of course, COVID changed everything. And then with lockdown, was a time to sort of reevaluate what I was doing and what I wanted from my future, and producing was it.
Do you think the club scene is going to come back the way it was pre-COVID?
It's starting to now, and there's talks of getting some bigger festivals back as well. It's really hurt the club scene. It's really hurt the club scene, and it's taken a long time. Even now, people still don't want to go out. Yeah, sure, the kids will go out, 18, 19, 20-year-olds will go out, but those older people that have that real, appreciation for the old school music, no, they're, I think people are still, it's sort of like step lightly.
Let me ask you something, which is, a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere have no clue how tough the restrictions were with COVID in Australia. Can you, because we heard Melbourne was like a Gestapo. It was one of the most locked down places in the world.
It's crazy. You couldn't go anywhere. We had a curfew. You couldn't go anywhere from 8 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. in the morning. You weren't even allowed to be on the road. If you're on the road in your car, you'd be arrested.
I mean, what?
Anywhere.
That makes no sense to me. And get arrested to go into a jail.
Yeah.
Holy!
It was crazy. We were the most locked down city in the world. Absolutely, and it's just crazy. And you look at the restrictions that were in place, even in New York and in London, cities 10 times, 20 times the size of Melbourne, but they put the hardest restrictions on us.
Because you were bad people.
It's tough.
Dirty. Bad. That's what I was telling my friends there. I'm like, what? They said, you don't understand. They said, you'll get fined $2,000 Aussie if you're caught outside. It's first offense. Then second offense, caught again, you're doing 90 days. 90 days. You're already locked up in your house. So you're going to go from your house locked up into a jail. Wonderful idea. Christ.
The restrictions and, the fines that they have on businesses here can be anywhere from $10,000 up to $100,000.
But one thing I noticed, which I never noticed before, was when that rally happened, people came out and started going against the government, which I never thought, because Australians are very docile, very nice, beautiful, warm people. They were starting to look like Americans with their stuff out going, we had enough. It was getting...
People were fed up because lockdown would lift and then we'd have maybe 2 or 3 weeks of freedom and then you're back into lockdown again, and then businesses were starting to open up, and then as quickly as they'd open, they'd have to close again. And the hospitality industry here in Australia relies heavily for staff on backpackers and people coming from Europe and from the States on working visas and tourist visas, where they can come and work for a year or 2 years. And all those people had to leave the country and go back to their own country. So, one of the biggest problems now that venues have is finding staff. They just can't get staff. There just aren't the people to fill the jobs.
Were you doing like everybody else? Were you on Facebook doing your sets and twitching yet? Or you just decided, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm going to wait this out to get to it?
It's funny. I didn't do any live streams, but I did do a live stream. So what I did was I'd hop on my mountain bike and go for a ride, and then I'd be next to the river and I'd sort of film the river and say, here's my latest live stream from the stream.
Everyone can it work at his live stream with the water going by. Watch it carefully. It's happening. That's good. I like that.
No, I left that to others and just concentrated on the production side of things. I mean, each to their own. For some guys, I mean, it really did keep people's sanity. It kept people's sanity. Like guys like Corsi, and as you know, Corsi's the biggest DJ in Australia, and he has been for many years. And Corsi went on air live streaming every Saturday night, and I think it just kept so many people's sanity. So people were sort of having parties with their families at home, because people pretty much had to party on their own because they weren't allowed to have anybody in their house. Not even family members could come to your house. You're only allowed to, lockdown was just you and your partner or your children. That was it.
But people don't understand, why did that happen? What was the reason? Did you guys not have the vaccines? What was going on from Australia's point of view? Because you guys must have been asking, why is this happening to us? Europe is already partying. America's starting to get back. We're still in lockdown.
Yeah. It was just the way the government was here. It was just baffling to, and it was all about the advice that they were getting from their health ministers and these so-called experts. And, everyone was just saying, it's time for you to just rip the Band-Aid, let people out and let it become what it's got to become, and it's becoming that now. Yeah, sure, we still have cases, a lot of cases each day, but it's manageable, and there's a lot of fear-mongering and scaring people, and it's, you have to learn to live with it.
Yeah. Now, you're 5 decades into this dance thing called dance music. So beyond, like Star Trek says, to where we go beyond, what's the focus now? We're in a perfect moment. COVID's in the rearview mirror. It's not away yet. It's in the rearview mirror. So don't send me a hate mail, everybody. I said it's in the rearview, meaning it could come right back in front view. But at least your mindset is we're forging forward to the yonder. What's your plan?
Well, my plan now is I do want to get back out there DJing again. I look after 7 venues in Melbourne where I'm music director. Similarly, we were talking about Marcus before, what Marcus does. Similar to sort of what Marcus Knight does with, looking after venues. So I'm sort of booking DJs, setting the music from the start of the night to the end of the night. So
wait a minute, everyone, hang on, everyone. Can It Work needs your resume, CV, and music sent to...
No. I get enough people hitting me up.
Wait a minute. Wait a second. Wait. Let's rewind this for a second. You actually curate music for every venue, the 7 venues, meaning you have to put the DJ lineups. Do you have a servicing company like that you have your own DJs that are doing that you are looking after, or is it just...
The DJs get paid by the venues, but the venues sort of pay me to book the DJs and to set the music direction from the beginning of the night with the warm-up sets through to the middle through to the end. So, and that's something I've always done. I've been doing that for more than 15 years now. So I'm still doing that. I want to get back to DJing. I mean, I'd love... I've been approached to DJ overseas, but it's still, I'd definitely love to do that. I mean, I'd love to play some vinyl sets overseas, absolutely, but I don't know how I'd go carting vinyl everywhere. As you know, it's so the technology, and I don't know about you, but with me, I've always embraced technology. And as you know, you get your old school DJs that are like, you're not a real DJ unless you play vinyl. And you get that everywhere. I mean, I know in New York, you've got those associations with the old school DJs, haven't you, where they all get together, guys that have been playing 40, 50 years.
I have a friend to me. He refuses to play digital. Refuses to play digital. He will not have nothing of it. He wants turntables in front of him. What can I say? It is what it is.
Yeah, so you get, you get those guys who just play vinyl, and then you get others like you and I who embrace technology, and I've always embraced technology. I mean, I was one of the very first DJs to play CDs in a club, and guys are like, "What are you doing?" And this is before they even brought out the very early CD mixers, the really early Pioneer units that Pioneer had, and the Denon units. Remember the Denon twin decks, and they had the pitch bender, and they were, and we cut our teeth with those in the early days. And I always embraced technology. So yeah, I've always moved technically with the times, and I think you have too, haven't you, Lenny?
No, mate, I'm still in Fred Flintstone land, playing with old rock cave rocks. No, I mean you have to. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
If you want to stay with what's going on, you have to embrace it. Now, you can be what I call hybrid. You don't have to take the whole thing, but you gotta to be able. This is my opinion. To be able to stay in this thing, you have to embrace what the next trends are to a certain extent. At first, I was I remember saying it myself in a magazine article. I would never play CDs.
You said that?
I learned to eat that one. Those CDs were in my mouth. Yes. So, people, this is the question I'm going to ask Ken. As a person that's been around as long as you have, and a new cat comes up to you, a new guy, and you have that sit down, what's some of the things that you would say to him that he should be doing? What's some of the things as a veteran of our industry that you would tell someone?
I'd be telling them to find their own groove, to get in your groove and to stick with it. I mean, I have and you can work these young guys out very, very quickly. The ones that are in it for the right reasons, for musical reasons, and the guys that are just in it for fame and notoriety. You can work someone out very, very quickly. And I'm more than willing to impart knowledge onto anyone if their heart's in the right place. But their heart has to be in the right place for me to give anyone really the time of day. And there's some young cats that are really switched on, that are musically switched on. Yeah, they may not have the 10,000 piece vinyl collection, but they absolutely love and adore the music. And you have to respect them for that the love's there for the music.
Sure.
And the love has to be there. It has to be there. I'm just not interested in dealing with anyone that's in the industry for the wrong reasons. You've got to be in it for the right reasons.
Well, the problem today is, from what we came from, is it was about the music and not the social side of the music. It was about the actual music that made the difference. Today, unfortunately, it's more about going to the gym, taking selfies, looking fabuloso, and comparing to everybody else what you do and how hot you look at your gig and this and that. It's a different world. It's a different world than when we came up in,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The times they are changing.
You got that right. You got that right. So, I mean, are we expecting more music from you? A lot more music?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, I've working on, some remixes for Irma Records in Italy.
Irma.
Where I've gone back, with Irma. So I'm remixing a couple of Just the Funk tracks.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, Say It Again and Can We Live, and some of the Soul Trend Orchestra tracks. And I've actually started producing with Sam Malone out of Dallas, and I know you had Mark Farina on your show a couple of weeks ago, and Steve, who is Sam Malone's very, very good friends with Mark Farina, and also with DeMarcus Lewis, DeMarcus Green as well. And so I've started working with Steve, and the first remix we worked on together which is coming out in Irma in early May, is Soul Train Orchestra's cover of Fat Larry's band's Act Like You Know. So
Act Like You Know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that record. Spring.
Yeah. So we worked on a remix of that, and I've also got a remix that I've done for Jamie Lewis. Of he released a version of the house version of Commodore's Brick House about 10 or 15 years ago. So I've remixed that for Jamie. So yeah,
You got your hands full. You got your hands full.
Yeah, and got another couple of albums coming out through DMC, working with Midnight Riot Records. A couple of things coming out through them. A new version of David Bowie's Young Americans, which I've been working on. A soulful version of that.
Good.
Yeah, so always something to do, Lenny.
Yeah, you gotta keep busy, brother. You got to keep booking those gigs. You got to DJ yourself, and you got to keep churning out. And like I always say, make the music happen, and keep it going, because this soulful thing is really important. It cannot be lost with time. We have to keep it going. We have to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been, I feel like I've been very, very blessed with my career and the longevity that I've had and the years that I've been in the business and the changes, adapting to technology and working in clubs, working with promoters, building those associations, friendships, relationships. It's a lot of work. As you know, it's a lot of work. Juggling that with family life is...
You just made me tired. I'm already tired. I'm like, oh, I feel like the race is almost over just when you're telling me, because it reminds me of everything I got to do when I get off this phone with you. I mean, off this show. It's just, it never ends. It feels like it never ends. The work is waiting for us. Trying to get it all done is not easy. That's the balancing act, right? The balancing act?
Yeah. And since I've been in lockdown, it has made me reevaluate everything in your life as it does, because you get more time for yourself, more time to think, more time to reflect where you want to be, what you want to do. And that's definitely production is where I want to be.
Are you still locked down, or are you out and free?
No, we're out of lockdown now. There's restrictions on the size of some events, but we're pretty much out of lockdown now. We're pretty much out of lockdown. Good.
Hope you never go.
The only restrictions that they have are for if you're unvaxxed, there's still a lot of restrictions for the unvaxxed compared to the vaxxed. Like unvaxxed still can't go into restaurants. Yeah, working from home. But
do you think it's fair that we had to take the vaccines and the ones that didn't should be having the same get out of jail card like we do? Like we can go eat now in those places, or is it all right? Just open everything up and let it just go back to where it was pre-COVID. What do you think at this point?
I think I open it up and let it rip. Open it up and let it rip. Each to their own, I suppose. I mean, there's people that haven't had vaccinations their whole life, so it's it's a personal choice. People's personal decisions, what they what each and everyone does with their life, but it's and what they want to do. So I think it is a personal choice. It's not something that I think can be forced on people.
Sure.
Yeah, I think let it rip.
Let it go, everyone. Let's go. Open everything up. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And it has gotten to that over here. On the Northern Hemisphere, it's gotten that way already. Yeah. In fact, when war broke out, people didn't even mention the word COVID. It was like,
no.
COVID? What's that? It was like nobody had anything to remember about COVID. It was like, now we focus all our sights on the war. Everything else went silence. Gigs are going. Festivals are on.
Yeah.
Let's go. Come on. I'm watching everybody. It's like nothing ever happened. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's one good thing about here. They're bringing the festivals back. So they're starting to, I saw a story the other day, Mark James, who ran Summer Days. I don't know if you ever played at Summer Days and Future Music Festival.
Work for him. Yeah, I remember Mark James. Sure.
Yeah. Those guys are getting back together. And they've got the backing of the government to put some big festivals back on. So when I hear that Defected's coming back, Glitterbox is coming back, so
we'll all be coming back.
Yeah, slowly.
Yeah, I mean, in parts. I was already approached. Next year would be the right time to be there in 23. I'm pretty much thinking that because I spoke to people in Asia and things are still closed in Asia. Singapore's closed.
Yeah, still closed.
Thailand's still closed.
Yeah.
It's rough. I mean,
Well, as you know, especially for internationals, to make that sort of tour worthwhile, you've got to sort of tie that in sort of after you come to Australia and New Zealand. You've got to head over to Singapore and Bali and
Phuket and do all those islands and do Australia and all that on the back end of a 3 or 4 week tour. Yeah. Agreed. Well, we're going to keep watching you. Can it work? I like that. I love that name. Can it work? Walk up. And I want to thank you for getting up so early and spending your time with us on a very important show. And people got to know you around the world who guessed you didn't know Ken Walker, known as Can It Work. He's a guy with emotion and feeling. He comes from the disco era. He understands the difference between real music and computer music. And we love Can It Work.
Thank you so much, Lenny. Thank you so much. And, I've admired you from afar for a long, long time. And you've got the love of the music. You've got the history of the music. And such a pleasure and an honour to sit down and talk with you.
And also the people got to hear you tell your story. And that's so important to this. The reason why we did this is we need to hear your voice. We need to hear it, paint the picture of what all the music we all been hearing coming out and all those compilations and everything. And it's great that you shared your time with us. And because I still can't get Dr. Packer to get up to do this. Knock, knock, Packer. Knock, knock. You got to do it too. He wants to do it, but I want him live. I don't want Packer on a replay, right? Everybody's asking, when are you bringing Dr. Packer? Well, why don't you send Dr. Packer a mail, everybody, and ask him because Ken got up.
I'll talk to Greg. Greg's a friend of mine. So, but it's even worse in Perth because they're another 3 or 4 hours.
I know. So stay up like I'm in LA. Just stay up, work late, don't go to sleep, and then we'll catch it together. We'll be together. Like I've done for things for you guys. I've had to take phone calls in the middle of the night because we need things to be done. I need to talk to you. Yeah, I know. I get up. I do it. Well, you know what? He's a primitive. We love Greg Packer. And we love all the Australian guys. I have to say, I've had some of the best gigs of my life in Australia with all of you. Some of the best gigs I can remember. All the years I traveled, playing in some of the best places, especially in Melbourne, playing at Chevron, which I felt like I played at the Garage. It was crazy. It was crazy. I was like, wow, the people screaming, and it was nuts. I was like, none of us in the Northern Hemisphere really knew what this was like down there. We had no clue. Absolutely no clue. And I'm going to blame it on you, Ken, because it's guys like you that made that happen. All of you DJs, it's your fault. You have to take blame for doing a good job. So keep doing that good job. Keep preaching the music. Show the youngins what they need. Don't ever stop. And stay safe. Hopefully I'll see you soon on that side, or you're in the Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere. But I want to say thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Lenny.
And I know summer's over for you and spring is beginning for us. Two things I want to say. We're coming off of Ken Walker, right? I'm bringing you guys Mike Dunn from Chicago. Mike Dunn's coming on. I got him.
Fantastic.
And Parrish from the old school's coming on. DJ Meme called me from Brazil and said, you do great things. And when he called me, I said, DJ Meme is coming on. So this show is stopping at no. And most importantly, God damn you all, tune in Friday, 12 o'clock, New York City time, for the True House Stories Takes Over Your Radio show on Twitch. Follow me at Lenny Fontana Official. And for me, good night, ta-ta, good morning, and good day, everyone.